Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank, where I climb the online Series 10 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we are checking off another brand new restricted Pokemon off the list in Ho-Oh. I'm really excited to try out this team because you may recognize it. We actually lost against it a couple of days ago, and my opponent in that match, Pro Slowbro, was actually kind enough to upload a rental and send it over to me. So I'm really excited to try it out because I think this team just maximizes Ho-Oh super well. It's really well constructed and really just allows Ho-Oh to shine as much as possible. So yeah, huge shout outs to Pro Slowbro once again for the team. And yes, as you can tell, I'm actually back in my old recording environment. That's because I'm visiting home for a couple of days, for those of you that are curious. So yeah. As always, I'll do a brief breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps linked in the description below. So, let's talk about Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is a really interesting Pokemon in Series 10 because it doesn't hit nearly as hard as, the most common Pokemon. Doesn't get access to any really strong spread type attacks that you'll typically see, right? No Water Spout or Origin Pulse or Precipice Blades or Astral Barrage, for example. But Ho-Oh's value is that it is really bulky and also gets access to Recover and Regenerator. This is one of the most difficult restricted Pokemon in the format to knock out, and especially with the lack of Dynamax, and there aren't that many Pokemon that actually Rock Slide or use Rock type attacks in general. Ho-Oh actually can stand up to so many Pokemon really well in the format. And while Ho-Oh doesn't have the offensive output of some of the top restricteds, it still does a fair amount of damage with Sacred Fire and Brave Bird. Sacred Fire in itself being able to burn half the time is really powerful, especially when you consider how many of the Pokemon that are common in the format are physical, things like Zacian or Groudon, and Brave Bird is just obviously really good coverage. Between those two, you actually hit most of the format for really good damage. And maybe you're not picking up like knockouts, one-hit knockouts on the restricted Pokemon, but the value is that you are actually quite strong into a lot of the non-restricted Pokemon, right? Things like Rillaboom or Urshifu, for example. And so, yeah, Ho is one of those Pokemon where like you can 2-hit KO a lot of things, while, they can't really knock you out very easily. And the thing about Ho is that as long as you survive, you can heal back so much with Regenerator. This team also has Recover on Ho as well as Pollen Puff, so you can chain those, with each other. And basically the idea of when you play with Ho is to always be in a range where your opponent can't knock you out. If your opponent can KO you, then you'll probably want to consider a switch or a protect, but the thing is, Ho can take so much damage. As long as you survive the turn, then, you're still basically in a decent spot with it. So the key thing about using Ho-Oh is, first of all, identifying when there are Pokemon on your opponent's side that can really KO it. Something like a Magnet or a Choice Specs Regieleki is scary, obviously. Any Pokemon with Rock-type attacks and Pokemon with Water-type attacks as well. Now, the thing about Water-type Pokemon is that this team is a Gastrodon. Gastrodon isn't too common in this format, but it synergizes really nicely with Ho-Oh because it has Storm Drain. So you can use it as a switch-in specifically, have it next to that Ho-Oh to absorb any Water-type damage. It's going to be really essential, especially when you consider that Water Urshifu's on so many different teams, right? As well as getting a special attack boost on Gastrodon, right? Enabling it to deal more damage as well. So, the rest of the Pokemon on this team are pretty standard. It's classic Incin, Urshifu, Rillaboom, and in Amoonguss here. The one thing to note about Amoonguss here is, as you can see, there's no Protect. Instead, it has Pollen Puff. I absolutely love that decision just because it makes Ho-Oh even more difficult to KO. And the thing is that I think a lot of players just don't know how to properly deal with Ho-Oh. They see it, they start panicking, they try to just, launch a lot of attacks onto Ho-Oh and ignore its partners. However, like I mentioned, the thing about Ho-Oh is you just need a little bit of HP to survive the turn so that you could potentially switch out with the Regenerator. This team has so much good like defensive switches as well, right? You have Dual Fake Out with Incin and Rillaboom. You have Intimidate from the Incineroar, Amoonguss pressuring with Spore, Amoonguss having Regenerator as well. And then, Gastrodon with Recover as well as the Grassy Terrain from Rillaboom. So there's a lot of healing basically, and the goal is to just slowly out-pressure your opponent, right? Like, you're not going to pick up one-hit KOs most of the time, but you don't need to because you don't take much damage and you can heal off so much of the damage that you do end up taking. The Ho-Oh here does have safety goggles. There are a lot of viable items on Ho-Oh. You could run a berry as well. But goggles is really nice just because this just ensures that you completely wall Amoonguss. Because Amoonguss can be bulky enough normally to actually take an attack from Ho-Oh, especially if you run an Akka or a Koba Berry. And so this just means that Amoonguss cannot wall you and then you can completely ignore it, which is super nice. So, yeah. I think this is a really effective Ho-Oh team, so I'm excited to try it out. And huge shoutouts to Pro Slowbro once again for the team. So thanks to you all as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please share your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what your favorite Switch games are because I've not played that many and I am curious. The ones I'd go to obviously are Pokemon. Played a couple of, not a couple, I played a fair amount of Smash. Unite as well, having just recently come out. And then Overcooked was definitely one of my favorite games to play through as well. So let me know yours in the comment section below and let's get started. Alright, first match of the day, and we're up against Zacian. I feel like I've played against this very team before, but I'm not 100% sure. Generally, I'd say Ho-Oh has a really good matchup here. So we're going to want Ho-Oh for sure, Incineroar for sure. Water Urshifu seems pretty solid here. It's mainly the Whimsicott that scares me a little bit. Yeah, the question is, like, what of the last three do I want to bring? Maybe it's Gastrodon, actually, because if they're Water Urshifu, that obviously gives Ho-Oh and Incineroar a lot of trouble. So I'm thinking Ho-Oh, Incin, Gastrodon. And then, like, Amoonguss is tempting for Pollen Puff. It's just that it has to deal about the Chandelure as well as the Indeedee. So I'm thinking it's Urshifu, Gastrodon, Ho-Oh, Incineroar. I could be convinced on Amoonguss, but I don't think we absolutely need it. So I'm down to go with Ho-Oh plus the Incineroar, I think, with Gastrodon and Urshifu in the back. Part of the thing here is that we ideally want to eliminate the Whimsicott sooner than later, because if Whimsicott gets eliminated, then that paves the way for Urshifu a little bit more. Whereas as long as Whimsicott's out on the field, I have to respect it, potentially Moonblasting me later on. And Urshifu is one of the more frail components of this team. Everything else is just so bulky. So they're going to go with Urshifu and Whimsicott, and it is going to be Water Urshifu. Okay. Now, only one of these two Pokemon can be Focus Sashed. I obviously have the free switch it into Gastrodon on turn 1 as well. So even though this looks bad, us having Gastro as a switch in works out really nicely for us. Yeah, like, I honestly lean towards just switching Incin out into Gastro on turn 1, and I wouldn't mind going for a Brave Bird here onto Urshifu. What do I think is sashed here? Honestly, I would think Urshifu is sashed. But like I said, if we can eliminate Urshifu turn 1, that'd be great. I can just see it switching out. They don't really have a great Brave Bird switching other than Zacian. Then if you're switching in Zacian, I can just bring the Incin back in. So I'm down to Brave Bird Urshifu and just go into Gastrodon turn 1, I think. Getting that Intimidate just means like close combat isn't nearly as scary. They're going to switch Whimsicott out. That's fine by me. Into Indeedee. Okay. So they were reading into Fake Out turn 1, which makes sense. But I didn't have that much incentive to Fake Out. 1, because of the potential Indeedee switch in. And 2, just because like there wasn't much damage output from my opponents in if I bring in this Gastro on turn 1. Okay, so it's going to be Psychic Seed on Indeedee. This also basically confirms all 4 of my opponent's Pokemon, because you're surely going to have Zacian in the back, right? So like, if Urshifu just goes for a Surging Strikes here, we are off to a fantastic start. Beautiful, and they go for that. Nice. So this is exactly why you have Gastrodon on the team. Otherwise, you're going to run into so many, Water Urshifus, and just makes it so much easier to switch in and basically invalidate it. So we get Brave Bird off, and they're not Focus Sash. Yeah, this is like the dream turn 1. That could not have played out any better for us. And like, honestly, I mean, Ho already has a pretty good matchup here, but that is like the best turn 1 we could have asked for, because we get a free knockout. We don't take any damage other than Brave Bird Recoil. So they bring out Zacian, which is fine. I think it's probably fine to just switch Ho-Oh out into Incineroar here. Yeah, that gives us an Intimidate onto Zacian. You would think Indeedee is going to go for a Follow Me here. So I'm actually down to start Icy Winding, I think, because then it just allows us to outspeed Zacian with everything that we have in the back. Earth Power is not really going to do important damage to Indeedee here anyway, so yeah. This should be a like really good position. The main thing to watch out for here is Zacian like Swords Dancing and then snowballing really quickly from that. Swords Dance can be quite scary here, so let's see if they have it. I think if they're a sub-variant, they are in a lot of trouble here. I also could have considered actually just staying with Ho-Oh and just picking up a knockout there. It's Wild Charge, wow. A good thing we switched out. Jeez. You don't see that frequently, but that also should confirm then that you're not Swords Dance, because it's pretty tough to fit Wild Charge onto a moveset typically. So we get a speed drop here, which is fantastic. Now, Wild Charge is obviously like really good damage into both the Ho-Oh and the Urshifu on the back, so I do want to be a little bit careful about that. I will feint to a Fighting type attack here, so I think I am down to switch out into Ho-Oh, because even if they Wild Charge the Ho-Oh, Ho-Oh will survive, and then we can just switch it back out. And now I think I'm willing to just Earth Power. We probably should actually go for a second Icy Wind, but now that I've revealed Icy Wind, I can see them maybe getting a little bit anxious and just trying to attack with the Indeedee immediately rather than Follow Me. Yeah, they just go for follow me, but that's fine. It's mainly the regenerator on Ho-Oh that allows us to make these plays, right? So yeah, they go for close combat. But like I said, even if they predicted the Ho-Oh switch and then clicked Wild Charge there, it's completely fine, right? Because like, I don't really take that much damage. So the main thing for us that's good here is that they're not Swords Dance. If they were Swords Dance, this probably would have been a lot harder. But yeah, fortunately for us, they're not. Okay. What do I want to do now? I am going to... I mean, they're probably going to Wild Charge us again. I'm honestly down to just Sacred Fire here because Wild Charge isn't going to KO. And then Earth Power Zacian. There's just so little damage output from their team at this point in the game, right? So Zacian protects, but that's fine by me. That should just be a knockout onto Indeedee as long as we don't miss. And Sacred Fire connects. Perfect. Ho-Oh in itself... Oh, wow. Indeedee survived that. That's pretty impressive, I have to say. That is actually going to be a significant chunk of damage. Okay. It's still fine, though, right? Like, we are still in such a good spot. Let's see. In this position, I think what I want to go for is actually... Well, there's no reason to risk taking any unnecessary damage on Ho-Oh, so I'm down to switch out into Incineroar here. And even if they double up onto Gastrodon KO it, it's fine. Because then I can just get Urshifu and Ho-Oh next to each other. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. Indeedee hung on from that Sacred Fire. I really didn't think it would be able to. And they actually switched Zacian now. Okay, that's smart. Reset the Intimidates here. And since Zacian has Wild Charge, that actually means it has a way to hit Ho-Oh. So getting another Intimidate off with Incineroar later on will be kind of important. But the great thing here is Icy Wind will knock out the Indeedee and break a Sash on the Whimsicott. And we're up 4-2 already, right? And Indeedee actually goes for a Protect. That's actually a really good thing for us because it denies them a free switch in back out into Zacian. Like, if you give up the Indeedee there, then sure you lose a Pokemon, but then you get Zacian out safely, and that puts you in a really good spot. Also, that +1 Icy Wind just did so much damage there. Wow. Terrain disappears as well, which means I can actually just Fake Out here this next turn. If I'm my opponent, what am I even going for here? Rage, like, follow me. I could see them... Like, I think it's fine to just... because especially because we have Rindo Berry on Gastrodon, so even if you have, like, a Grass-type attack on Whimsicott, it's fine. You need to just Protected, right? It's probably fine to just Fake Out Whimsicott and Icy Wind in this position. Like, if they don't have Protect on Whimsicott... okay, Indeedee actually goes for a double and gets it, but it's not Whimsicott protecting here, so that's good. So we should just KO the Whimsicott here. Oh, it's Rocky Helmet. So where is there a Focus Sash? It's interesting to see Whimsicott and Urshifu on the team, and then neither of them actually carry a Focus Sash. Huh. Very interesting. Okay. So there's the Icy Wind, and that will eliminate Whimsicott. Perfect. So now my opponent's last one is Zacian. We know it's Zacian. Indeedee is one attack away from getting KO'd. Smart of them to go for the double, at least, you know, gives them some room to potentially still win in this match. I think here, what I'm willing to do is, like, the thing about Zacian is it's such a good Pokemon, but it doesn't have spread damage, right? So, like, here I'm willing to just Flare Blitz into the Zacian and Earth Power into it, because you can't pick up a knockout onto both of my Pokemon. If Indeedee tries to go for a triple Protect, then Zacian just faints from either of the attacks I'm launching into it. If Indeedee goes for Follow Me, you can only knock out one of my two Pokemon. And they actually decide not to follow me, okay. And they just go for close combat, which is fine by me, right? Because if you're not going for follow me, this means you don't have a way to actually deal with the Incineroar right now. And then Flare Blitz here should just KO Zacian. So, yeah. That play kind of, like, pinned my opponent. There wasn't anything I think they actually could have done to cover for every option there. Because Indeedee just is very kind of useless offensively in that position. So I'm curious what it went for here. Okay, they went for Expanding Force, which makes sense. I think my opponent was basically just hoping for me to potentially switch out the Incineroar, but we had such a big lead, and Incin in itself is so good offensively in that position that there's not very much reason to do so. So, yeah. This was one in which, you know, we just had a pretty good offensive matchup. My opponent didn't have that much damage into... Well, actually, I was going to say they don't have that much damage in Ho-Oh, but they did have Water Urshifu as well as Wild Charge Zacian. That being said, Ho-Oh is just so tough to deal with, right? Because it's like we already had that early Intimidate. Getting that free knockout onto the Urshifu was, you know, just put us in such a commanding position to start. So, yeah. Yeah, definitely a really, really fun way to get started. My computer just went to sleep there, so the coloring looks a little bit weird right now, but let's look for another game. We can actually check our opponent's team here, so let's see what they have. It was Goggles Urshifu. That's interesting. Okay. AV Incineroar. Zacian. Yep, just Jolly Max with Wild Charge. Rocky Helmet Whimsicott. Sunny Day. No Protect on that one. They did have Energy Ball, too. Wow. I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to go for Energy Ball into Gastrodon earlier. Focus Sash on Chandelure, that makes sense. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And then Psychic Seed on Indeedee. It's just funny because their team has like multiple Pokemon that want to carry Sash. Like Indeedee, Chandelure, Whimsicott, and Urshifu are all Pokemon that you'll often see with Focus Sash. So, yeah. Definitely a really favorable matchup for Ho-Oh to get started, though. And, yeah, that's one of the nice things about using Ho-Oh, right? You actually have a really decent matchup into one of the most common restricteds in Zacian. So, yeah, let's look for another one. Alright, next match of the day, and wow, this is a really cool team. Pelliper, Seismitoad, Volcarona, Zapdos, Zacian, and the Heliolisk. So it's kind of a rain hybrid team around Zacian, which I think is so smart because Zacian, you know, is obviously weak to fire, and having rain is really valuable. And unfortunately, that means that Ho and Incineroar are going to be a lot less effective here. Wow, such a cool team. Okay. So if I'm my opponent, what 4 Pokemon am I going with? I'm probably bringing Pelliper, Zacian, Zapdos, and Seismitoad. I think Amoonguss to even get a single Spore is going to be really important here because my opponent's team doesn't have that much bulk. So being able to just put a single Pokemon to sleep can give us a major advantage. We obviously have Gastrodon, which can be very good here. Not sure I want to lead it, though. I think we dropped Incineroar for sure. The question is whether or not I want to bring Urshifu, because Rillaboom, Gastro, Amoonguss, Ho-Oh could certainly work. They don't have terrain control. I think I'm down to lead Rillaboom and Amoonguss. Obviously, this leaves me with 2 Pokemon that are weak to flying, but at the same time, I have a Solvest on Rillaboom and a Koba Berry on Amoonguss, and almost all of their damage is actually special, right? And the 2 flying-type Pokemon are special attackers here as well. So, yeah. What's the goal here? To just get a single Spore off, ideally, because their team is so fast and it's relatively frail, so even shutting down one thing for a guaranteed 1 turn goes a really long way. But I can't, you know, safely lead Ho-Oh here, and there are just so many offensive threats on my opponent's team to deal with. So they're going to go with Zapdos and Zacian. Okay. Pretty scary. I mean, Zapdos could definitely be Goggles, and Zacian could have Sub here, both of those, which would be pretty bad for us. Yeah. I mean, so those are my questions, honestly, on turn 1 immediately. Now, what I could do is actually pivot Rillaboom out into Ho-Oh immediately. Fake out Spore is like the obvious play here. It's just like whether or not they're Goggles on Zapdos. Goggles makes a lot of sense here. You're pretty Amoonguss weak otherwise, to be honest. I think I'm willing to scout out for it, though, at least. So, the problem here is you could so easily just double protect turn 1. Okay, I'm willing to switch Rillaboom straight out into Ho immediately and go for a Spore and a Zapdos. What do I think they have in the back? Pelliper, Seismitoad was my guess. Surely Pelliper is one of the 2. But I don't know about the other. Okay, they just actually go for Blade. I mean, it could just be Blade to double up onto Amoonguss here. That looks like what's happening. Amoonguss takes that, but Heat Wave here makes sense. Or a Hurricane. They actually do opt for Hurricane, but... Okay, they target the Rillaboom slot. And they're not Goggles. Okay, that's absolutely huge. That is absolutely huge, because now we can get a lot from Regenerator. Especially because we have double Regenerator right now, which is pretty sweet. If I'm my opponent, what am I doing here? I'd honestly consider protecting Zacian and then switching Zapdos out into Pelliper. I don't think Zacian can KO Ho from this range, So I am willing to just Sacred Fire into Zacian and switch Amoonguss out, I think, into Rillaboom. Like I said, as long as Ho has any HP, we're okay. The only thing that I always, like, am a little bit cautious of when playing with Ho is, like, being in range of potentially getting KO'd by a crit. We obviously also just went up against Wild Charge Zacian, so if they have Wild Charge here, that would be pretty bad. Yeah, so there's the Pelliper switch in as expected. Fine by me. Actually, if you're my opponent, you should attack with Zacian into the Amoonguss slot here, right? Because if you protect and I Spore into the Pelliper, it's a complete disaster for you. But I think Rillaboom should take a Behemoth Blade, and then we have Fake Out Pressure this next turn. Is Wild Charge just more meta? No? Oh, wow. I mean, I guess it makes sense on Zacian here as well, because otherwise you might struggle a little bit against Kyogre. That's... okay, wow. What are the odds we run into Wild Charge Zacian back-to-back? I want to go on Pikalytics and take a look at the statistics after. Because if they don't have Wild Charge there, that's such a good turn for us, right? Because then I can just Fake Out plus Recover or even switch out the subsequent turn. But that's the thing. I took a calculated risk there, and with Ho-Oh, you basically, like, probably shouldn't take those risks unless you needed to. But the matchup didn't look amazing to me, so that was a position where I was like, maybe I'm willing to compromise and actually go for it. Now with Zacian here, Fake Out Earth Power is super obvious. I could see Zacian protecting. To be honest, I'm already really behind in this game. So I kind of need to go for some big plays, right? Okay, I'm down to Fake Out Icy Wind Pelliper and then attack Zacian next turn. They don't protect Zacian though, okay. Wow, they played super, super aggressively this game, but it's paid off quite heavily for them, so kudos. I don't know. Like, if I Fake Out Earth Power there and they switch out into... survive with 1 HP exactly. And they switch out into Zapdos. That's obviously kind of rough. This game is certainly not over yet. Especially if Seismitoad's their last one. See, I've got Amoonguss in the back with Pollen Puff. They don't really have great damage for Gastrodon, to be honest. And we have the Koba Berry on Amoonguss. So here I think I'm willing to just Earth Power into Zacian and go for a Grassy Glide and just try to knock it out. They didn't protect last turn, so I don't know if they finally protect here. At this point, I really wouldn't think you'd want to protect, especially because I just launched an Icy Wind as well, but I'm not sure. Okay. I don't know if Earth Power KOs, though. I wouldn't think so, to be honest. Oh, they actually certainly will KO now, because they went for close combat. I wonder if this means Rillaboom even survives the turn if they ended up going for, like, a Tailwind with Pelliper instead. But also, like, if I had just glided the Pelliper, was that enough to KO? I feel like close combat there is a little bit greedy. Okay, they went for Hurricane onto Rillaboom. Now you certainly have to go into your last Pokemon, right? So Zapdos is still fully asleep. I have Recover and Pollen Puff on this Gastrodon. Or sorry, Recover with Amoonguss and... Recover with Gastrodon, Pollen Puff on Amoonguss. I guess I should have just scouted out for Wild Charge. We even Salt went up against in the last game. I just was like, what are the odds they actually have it again here? But the answer is, yeah, they do. Okay. In this position, I'm inclined to think that Pelliper is going to want to Hurricane Amoonguss. Now, we have Koba Berry. So I'm going to just go for an Icy Wind here and Spore into Pelliper. The issue here is that I have very little damage output at this point. I don't have an Ice Beam, and I don't have a special attack boost on Gastrodon. So I'm basically hoping for multiple turns of sleep on Zapdos, I think. They could also just Hurricane the Gastro here. Yeah, I don't actually remember how fast Amoonguss is here. Oh, that did a lot of damage into Zapdos, though. Like, that's what we want to see. Because especially if their last one's Seismitoad, Gastrodon could definitely pull this off. And they are going to go for Hurricane onto Lakoba to Amoonguss, okay? So I hope we can survive this and get the Spore off. That would be absolutely huge. Nice, we do survive. Okay, perfect. That was a crit, too. Okay, no confusion, though. That's what matters. Nice. Yeah, I mean, if Zapdos takes, like, a 3-turn sleep here... I think Gastrodon just kind of KOs it. Wow, Gastrodon's been so amazing for us today. I've been really impressed by it. Okay. The thing is, with Amoonguss, I can never protect, but my opponent doesn't know that. I'm just going to Icy Wind here. Oh, yeah, wait. How fast is our Amoonguss? We're min speed. Like, I'm basically gambling and hoping they stay asleep for multiple turns at this point anyway, right? Yeah. So I'm just gonna Icy Wind and Pollen Puff the Gastrodon. Pelliper switches out, which actually I'm fine with. It is Seismitoad. Does Seismitoad get access to Grass Knot? I feel like the answer is yes. Okay, they stay asleep for another turn, which is absolutely huge. Man, it makes me wonder, though, if I actually clicked Grass Knot into the Seismitoad there, that might have just been game. Icy Wind is doing so much damage to Zapdos here, by the way. So, I'm sure this is just an offensive set. Okay, we get a huge Pollen Puff into Gastrodon. The problem is now Amoonguss just faints this next turn, right? Rain does stop. Um... 59 speed, even at -3, I think these Pokemon are still surviving. Or actually, Zapdos specifically, it's only at -2. And not survive, I mean outspeed. Okay, I am just going to Icy Wind here and Grass Knot. Like, maybe Seismitoad for some reason targets the Gastro rather than Amoonguss because they think Amoonguss is going to protect or something. But I don't really have an... Like, Amoonguss here doesn't have protect, right? So I can't help but wonder if, yeah, I should have predicted the switch out last turn. I could have gone for Grass Knot or Spore onto the Pelliper slot. That would have been a huge play for us. The thing is that Zapdos still can do really good damage with Hurricane onto us, right? Okay, they're going to switch out. That makes sense. Yeah, you get the rain up that way. But the funny thing here is if, like, Seismitoad tries to target Gastrodon, doesn't respect the Amoonguss, and Amoonguss just KOs Seismitoad. They just go for Earth Power. Okay. That's smart. I mean, you just get rid of your drops, right, with Zapdos. So I don't think Gastrodon can really pull this one off. And the main thing is I just didn't get any value out of my Ho at the end of the day, which is my bad. Okay, Pelliper hasn't taken any turns of sleep yet. Oh, and it's actually buried. Okay. This is a really cool team. And yeah, I guess Wild Charge Zacian. I gotta check the usage stats on that after this game, but... Like I said, it makes sense with my opponent's team, because otherwise Kyogre actually seems... I don't know, they have Zapdos and Heliolisk, so... Triple Electric, yeah, just a strong team building decision that punishes me really heavily. I'm just going to Earth Power Seismitoad now, but I'm sure they Earth Power us. Okay, Pelly takes a turn to sleep. They're moving first, so that normally indicates Protect. Or it could be Wide Guard. Oh, that did entirely too much damage to us. I think another one KOs. We don't KO Seismitoad, unfortunately. We can still win if they end up, yeah, like, if we survive Earth Power and then Zapdos and Pelliper both stay asleep for another turn, the subsequent turn. But we have to KO Seismitoad here. Okay, and they managed to just pick up the knockout. We get crit, but that's okay. Like, I didn't play this game super well, right? The Zacian sniping Ho was just a bad luck. Although, I don't know how much value Ho could have really had in this matchup, given that we're up against... Okay, actually, the answer is it still can have value, because even if we get a single special attack boost on Gastrodon in that game, Gastrodon can just hard carry it for us. So, yeah, I'm going to look at the usage stats for Zacian and how many are running Wild Charge right now, because we saw it in the last game, but I was like, oh, that's a pretty obscure move, right? Like, I didn't think we'd run into it again. And, like, we weren't in an amazing position to switch out there, just because I thought it was maybe too passive of a play. But, yeah, that's a really cool team for my opponent. I think they played that super well. So I'm on Pikalytics right now, and it's telling me that 9.3% of Zacian run Wild Charge. It's under Close Combat, Swords Dance, Play Rough, Sacred Sword, Sub, Protect, and Iron Head, which turns into Behemoth Blade. Those are all the moves that, you typically expect. So it's basically like the first niche move that you'll see. Second one on here being Dig, and then third one being Work Up. So, yeah. That one's just, that's a little unfortunate, but I certainly, like, wasn't in a position where I needed to stay in with Ho-Oh that turn, and I did risk it a little bit, but that risk, like, was kind of a calculated one, because if, they don't run Wild Charge there, and the majority of Zacians don't, and we get that Sacred Fire off, even if we don't KO, we're definitely not going to KO, and even if we don't burn, that's still good damage on the Zacian to chunk away at it, enough where maybe Earth Power can KO, so, yeah, I honestly don't really regret that play too much, but, ultimately... Yeah, if you lose Ho-Oh quickly and you don't get any damage off with it, obviously the game's just going to be a lot more difficult to play. And conserving it could have meant baiting a water type attack at some point to give Gastrodon that special attack boost. So, yeah. Really cool team for my opponent. I think they executed quite nicely, so kudos to them. We did have the opportunity to maybe put the Zacian asleep on turn 1. But, like, the thing is, I really don't like going for Fake Out and Spore in that position onto either slot. Just because, yeah, like, a single Protect there would be really bad. I guess we could split the Fake Out and the Spore, but I also don't really love that either. So, yeah. I think, like, switching in Ho-Oh was fine turn 1, but unfortunately for us, we ran into another Wild Charge Zacian, and this one punishes us a little bit harder because we can't bring Incin as much. And that's a testament to good team building, right? Like, their team is composed in a way where I have not that much incentive to bring Incin other than to intimidate Zacian, and that's obviously really good, you know, incentive, but the rest of their team just beats Incineroar really hard, especially with the Pelliper and the Seismitoad. You know, they did bring all the Pokemon that we were expecting at the end of the day. So you could still make an argument for Incin just for that Intimidate, but it's pretty tough. So yeah, let's look for another one. Alright, third one of the day, and we are up against Zacian, Entei, Porygon, Regieleki, Araquanid, and Tsareena. Hey, definitely an interesting team, especially with the Araquanid. I think Ho-Oh, Incin, Gastro for sure. Among Us generally feels good here. Rillaboom doesn't feel good, especially with Tsareena, so we probably drop that. Urshifu with Surging Strikes is okay, but they have an Regieleki, and then they could also burn us with Entei, and they have Tsareena, so it's probably these four. The only question is what order I want to go with here. I think I'm fine with Incin, Ho-Oh lead, Gastro, Among Us. The key thing to note here is, for example, like, Regieleki is going to be the primary threat, actually, to our Ho-Oh, but it can't, like, Regieleki doesn't do that much to Incineroar, and Incineroar can actually 2-hit KO Regieleki. So let's say they lead Regieleki plus something that's not Araquanid, then turn 1 I'd actually have incentive to maybe switch Ho-Oh out into Among Us. Because, like, I think the key to the last game was Among Us, but I didn't, like, I basically had to switch it out after turn 1, right? Because they got the Behemoth Blade damage onto us. So, yeah. Like, I don't know. If they didn't have Tsareena, Rillaboom would be a little bit more interesting to me for Fake Out. Glide's also not bad damage into a Regieleki, P2, and Araquanid, but, you still have the Entei and the Zacian. And then Urshifu is honestly really tempting here just because of the Entei, but without a Focus Sash on it, and with them having so many things that resist Surging Strikes, it just doesn't feel like the smartest decision to me. So, yeah. Wow. I'm just wondering if this Zacian also has Wild Charge. That is my main question, because we run into 2 in a row so far. And statistically, the odds of that aren't exactly super high. We're gonna go with Tsareena and Entei. Okay, I don't mind that at all. Obviously, I can't really go for a Fake Out on turn 1, but at the same time, like, Ho-Oh's really nice into the Entei here. Entei just doesn't do much. Oh, unless they have Stone Edge. I actually really need to respect Stone Edge here, actually. Okay. So I'm going to go into Gastrodon and actually just straight Flare Blitz into Tsareena. Yeah, I mean, if they didn't have Stone Edge on Ho-Oh, it would be super free. But I had so many Entei's carry Stone Edge, so it's just an assumption we should make. I think I should just go for Sacred Fire. Wonder if they're making the read there and they do still have Stone Edge. Because if you don't have Stone Edge and that was their turn 1 play, like, you're in a really tough spot, basically. So we'll see. I don't think Flare Blitz KOs Tsareena here, but I don't need it to. Oh, that was really close, though. Dang. That's okay. I mean, I have the Rindo on Gastro here, but the other play here is to just protect this turn. Tsareena's not even scary, though. I think I'm down to Protect here and Parting Shot into Entei. I also could have, I don't know, just attacked Tsareena and then recovered, but I can also Parting Shot and go into Ho-Oh safely here, which is nice. They just go for Sacred Fire again, and they target the Incin slot. I mean, surely you don't have Stone Edge then, right? Unless this was like a mega big brain bait to make me think they don't have it, just to actually reveal it now. But they're at -1, so I don't even know if a -1 Stone Edge would KO, to be honest. Okay, I'll go into Ho-Oh. I guess we'll find out. I don't know, it just like, it wouldn't make much sense to go for back-to-back Sacred Fires there. Like, now I'm in a position to just click Recover with Gastrodon, heal all of that damage back up, and then just Brave Bird into Tsareena. I could Sacred Fire here. This is a position where I think it's worth taking that 5% chance to miss, because it would punish a switch-in so heavily. Yeah, they just keep going for Sacred Fire. Okay, there's no way you have Stone Edge then. That looks like banded damage to me, to be honest. Oh no, that was a crit, that's why. Okay. That Tsareena is faster than I had expected it to be, but two things here. Even if they went for Power Whip, it would have been fine, because Gastro would have had the Rindo Berry, but this is exactly why I wanted a Sacred Fire, right? They just bring out Regieleki. Now this takes so much damage, while Gastrodon's still in a fantastic spot. Nice. Oh, that is beautiful. If we get a burn there, yeah. This is where Ho-Oh has so much value. The fact that you wall so many... Not wall. You deal really good damage to a lot of the frail non-restricteds. Things like Urshifu, Aleki, Rillaboom you completely wall, which is really nice as well. So, yeah, that was a dream turn for us. And it looks risky, right? Because I mean, one, I was definitely not expecting their Tsareena to be that speedy. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just max speed. This Ho also doesn't have much speed investment, but that still definitely caught me off guard. But yeah, we are in such a good spot right now, right? Like, I've basically not even really taken any damage. I can pivot Gastro out now into the Incineroar. And I think I will just Sacred Fire Zacian here. Like, Entei's not really dealing any damage to us. Unless, once again, they've been big braining it the whole time and actually have Stone Edge secretly hidden, which would be wild here. So let's see. And they don't even protect. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that does no damage. Even if you crit Sacred Fire, or, yeah, Sacred Fire here, we would probably survive. This is the beauty of Ho-Oh, right? My opponent just spent so much time trying to deal with it, and all we have to do is just switch it out next turn and heal back so much of that damage that we've already taken, right? No burn from Sacred Fire, but I can't really complain about that. Yeah, I mean, the other decision here is I actually could just stay in with Ho-Oh and just click Recover, because Entei's not going to KO unless you crit us, basically. So the question is, like, whether or not I really want to risk that crit, because Gastrodon coming in here is also pretty darn safe. But then we take some chip damage with it, right? And potentially risk a burn as well. I mean, there really isn't much reason to risk a crit. Yeah, I'll just play it safe and switch out into Gastro here. Like, even though the odds of a crit are small, and, like, you know, I think I should still play around it, basically. Regenerator is just so safe in that position. This is also a middle of the ground play, right, where it basically covers for most of the things my opponent can go for. Alright. Was that a crit? That looked like it. That's why we switched out. Wow. Okay. What is their last Pokemon going to be? Like, they don't really have any threats to Ho-Oh in the late game, right? So here, I'm actually willing to just Flare Blitz Zacian and Earth Power. Like, as long as I KO the Zacian, and they just CC that, that's fine. Like, I think it's also feasible to switch Incineroar out into Amoonguss in that position. But I don't even mind having Amoonguss in the late game, because, like, the main value of having Incineroar in this matchup was to deal with my opponent's Zacian, right? Alright, so there's another Sacred Fire. No crit this time around. They do get the burn, alright? The Entei is getting a lot of good rolls for them, but it's fine. Yeah, I would assume their last one's Araquanid. And if the last one's Araquanid, Sacred Fire is not going to KO Gastrodon. So you can't even go for a water type attack into us. So I think I'm just going to bring out Ho-Oh now. And Brave Bird. Oh, man, okay. Obviously, we've seen Tsareena at this point. Why did I think Araquanid? I thought they had another secret Pokemon there in the back. Okay, wait. This is actually still losable. Right? If they... You can't KO bold Pokemon in this position, though. But the thing is, I don't have that much damage output. I think, yeah, Recover on Ho-Oh here is fine. And just Earth Power on a Tsareena for a KO. Okay, there's Sacred Fire into Ho-Oh. Yep. I don't think Triple Axel will KO Ho-Oh here. We'll see if they went for that or Power Whip. Yeah, they went for Axel. Okay. And this should win us the game. There's another crit. 91. Yeah, we're surviving here. Oh my gosh! Is this Scope Lens or something? This is like a testament though, right? Because like I'm actually really glad that crit went onto Gastrodon, because this highlights how like my opponent literally got 4 critical hits in the span of like, you know, 3 or 4 different attacks. But it didn't end up mattering because we have so much bulk to work with. They played exactly towards their outs there though, right? So kudos to them. Okay, in this position, even a crit Sacred Fire won't KO the Ho-Oh here. So we can, I'm down to just double recover in this position. Like, this is the thing that this team does so well, right? You just heal up consistently. It's just that Entei hasn't gone for any other attack. So I'm just so curious about the item on it. Yeah, they just end up forfeiting. We you know, did get pretty lucky getting the Sacred Fire burn onto Alecki. I think that definitely made the match a lot easier for us, because if we don't get that burn, then Alecki does stick around for another turn, and then like I don't necessarily have an easy way to KO it either. But like there was actually a lot that went well for us in this game, and I'm glad that like a couple of small decisions that I made ended up being like really critical, right? Like the decision to Sacred Fire the Tsareena rather than Brave Bird there. It's a little bit risky. I was expecting Ho-Oh to obviously be faster than Tsareena there, but I guess their Tsareena just has a good amount of speed investment, and the Ho-Oh on this team obviously doesn't. And so, yeah, like that caught me off guard, but the thing is, yeah, they basically had no free switch it into a Sacred Fire there because the Entei was already out on the field. So by going for a U-turn there, we just punished it super, super heavily, whereas Brave Bird, like, guarantees you the knockout on a Tsareena, but doesn't punish Zacian or Alecki nearly as hard as the switch in. As well as Porygon 2, right? If you get Porygon 2 and you burn it on the switch, and it just takes so much damage immediately on that first turn. So that was one big decision, and the other was actually switching out the Ho-Oh on the Sacred Fire, because if the Ho-Oh gets crit there and gets KO'd, it's actually a disaster for us, because at that point we had already taken a lot of damage with some of our other Pokemon, and Ho-Oh is the one that can so consistently heal, whereas for Gastrodon it's a little bit more unreliable, because they had the Tsareena to pressure out with it. So, yeah. That was a really, really fun set of games, and, you know, we definitely had some favorable matchups here. Like, I think if you're using this team and you go up into Zacian, that's actually one of the best restricted matchups you can ask for, and that's one of the reasons why I think Ho is really cool, right? Because you're obviously going to run into Zacian a fair amount of the time when you play on the online ladder. So I'm really impressed by the team. Game 2, I definitely didn't play perfectly. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, WoW Charge, I absolutely have to respect now and expect every Zacian to carry it, even though the usage stats say not that many have it. It's still just like one of those moves that's good to assume. But you know, that second game is a great example of how like a single move can completely change how a matchup looks. Not that the matchup was super heavily like favored towards us already because they had the Pelliper and the Seismitoad. But if they don't have the Wild Charge there, I think that plays out very, very differently. But they had it, they went for it in the perfect position, and I think played the game just generally really well as well. So yeah, definitely a fun set of games today. So thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please show your support by leaving a like. Don't forget to answer the question of the day. Hope you enjoy trying out the team if you do. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.